What's up, my lovelies? I am Gemma Jade, and today we are talking about the disappearance of Clinton Devin Nelson. Clinton Devin Nelson was born on August 9th, 1985 in Spearfish, South Dakota. So he's a Leo. He had just turned 21 when he went missing, and today he would be 35 years old. Clinton was a give you the shirt off his back kind of guy, according to his mother. He and his mother were extremely close. She said he loved children and making people laugh. And even for her, when she would try to discipline him or reprimand him, she would have a hard time doing it because he would always be so goofy and he always knew how to make her laugh and kind of even cheer her up when she was upset. When Clinton's mom, whose name is Carolyn, sometimes she's referred to as Carolyn Johnson and sometimes Carolyn Teagan. When she was a teenager, she went to Louisiana in the summer, I believe for summer vacation, and she met a man, another teenager, sorry guys, named Jeff. She and Jeff kind of had a summer romance, and when she went back to South Dakota at the end of this vacation, she found out she was pregnant at 17 years old. When she told Jeff, you know, he tried to do the right thing and he did move to South Dakota to be with Carolyn, but they were teenagers, you know, I think 17, 18 years old, and it just didn't work out. He did try his best, she tried her best, but, you know, it really just didn't work. So soon after Clinton was born, Jeff went back to Louisiana, where he was from, and Carolyn raised Clinton by herself with the help of her family. Eventually, she did remarry. And although Clinton got along really well with his stepfather, and I believe it was his half-sibling, not his step-sibling, he always kind of wondered about his biological father and his biological father's family and I guess like his roots. But Jeff was kind of in and out of Clinton's life throughout his life. He didn't come around much, and he wasn't involved at all in supporting or raising Clinton. Carolyn did all that, and then Carolyn and Clinton's stepfather did it once she remarried. In high school, Clinton was very athletic. He also loved anything to do with outdoors. He played soccer from pre-kindergarten to freshman year. Anything to do with outdoors, camping, hiking, fishing, skateboarding, rollerblading, all of that great outdoors stuff he just really loved to do and excelled at. In school, his favorite subject was history, but he became bored because it wasn't challenging enough for him. And that's totally relatable. That happened to me, I think, around, I think it was sophomore year, where I just ended up in like the not so smart classes because the year before I was bored and didn't do my work. It was junior year, one of those years, I don't know, but it's relatable. And also, I can relate to the fact that Clinton loved old music. He would recite random facts about random celebrities and musicians all the time. In high school, he struggled with kind of like an identity crisis. He was always this good kid, athletic, academically smart. He excelled. And then right around, I guess, his sophomore year, he was having an identity crisis, just wondering where he came from, wondering about his father. I guess this is something that always kind of haunted Clinton throughout his life. And he fell in with the wrong crowd and did start to use some pretty heavy drugs. He did eventually get himself clean and sober about 2 years before he decided to move to Louisiana, which we will get to later. He wanted to reconnect with his biological father, Jeff. He wanted to get to know that side of the family. And also, his uncle ran an oil rig in Texas that Clinton was going to commute from Louisiana to Texas to work on, and he was super excited about that. And his uncle offered to help Clinton get him the job once he got to Louisiana. So Clinton decided that at 20 years old, he just needed to get away from Spearfish. I mean, South Dakota, I can't even imagine a small town like that. You know what I mean? So he needed to get away, and he really needed to get in touch with his father and his father's side of the family and really kind of get to know him. Carolyn, Clinton's mother, said she was hesitant at first when Clinton told her he wanted to move down to Louisiana to live with his father and his stepmother because Jeff had problems with drugs in the past. But she was also very hopeful because she knew it was something that Clinton had to do to move forward in his life and move forward in his recovery. And she knew she'd see him again And whether or not he moved back to South Dakota, she was just excited at the prospect of him moving forward in his adult life and kind of finding himself after everything that he had struggled with drugs and addiction. He was 2 years clean, so she spent a while leading up to when Clinton left, talking on the phone to Jeff. She wanted to get a feel for where he was at in his life. Had he grown up? Was he still using drugs? Was he responsible and able enough to help Clinton on his new journey in life and to help guide him and support him in his recovery from addiction and drugs? You know, it's a lifelong process. I guess Carolyn had learned that or knew that, and she wanted to make sure that Jeff, I guess, was going to be a positive influence on Clinton. Jeff finally convinced her that everything would be wonderful, and he was ready, willing, able, and capable to help out their son in any way he needed, including with his recovery. Clinton left for Louisiana in April of 2006, and within 6 months, he would disappear without a trace, never to be seen or heard from again to this day. When he first got to Louisiana, Clinton stayed in a trailer with his father and his stepmother on some property where I know at least his stepsister also had a trailer, and I'm not sure if there were some cousins or not. I can't remember what I saw in the disappeared episode, but I know on this property, it was Jeff, Clinton's father, and his new wife, Clinton's stepmother, and then in another trailer, it was Clinton's stepsister. I got the idea from Disappeared that this was a really tight-knit kind of a family. Everyone kind of stuck together. But immediately upon arriving, there were some problems between Clinton and his stepmother. Or actually, his stepmother had some problems with him immediately upon his arriving. He had some kind of large dog that he was supposed to leave behind in South Dakota because the stepmother did not want the dog coming for whatever reason. Maybe because it was a trailer, it was a small space, it was already going to be the three of them. But Clinton brought the dog anyway. And on Disappeared, she said that was the first thing she saw was this big dog jump out of the back of the truck. And she was like, he wasn't supposed to bring this dog. The stepmother was extremely unhappy about this. She started complaining immediately. And very shortly thereafter, Clinton ended up moving into the trailer where his stepsister was staying and out of the trailer with his father and his stepmother. But again, it was like right across the little path, right on the same property. Not only did the stepmother constantly complain about the dog, but from what I was able to gather from online sources and the Disappeared episode was that, like I said, all three of them living in the same small space. She kind of just wanted her house back. I believe she was quoted as saying that. I mean, did she not realize it was going to be a tight fit with three people living in a small trailer, even with or without the dog? But she tried to make it about the dog. So, okay, it was about the dog. I didn't get a great feeling about the stepmother from the Disappeared episode. We'll kind of get into that later. Or you can do your own independent research on that. She just didn't seem like she really was too enthusiastic about Clinton being around. You know, she did make it clear, too, on the show. I got the feeling there were some jealousy issues there, too. But Clinton was laid back and chill. I mean, he was a Leo, the life of the party, laid back, chill. You know, and I think it was more so her constantly complaining. I feel like Clinton was just happy to have his father back and happy to be on this journey. And apparently the father felt the same way because as this is still debatable depending on which source you look at, Carolyn had said that Jeff had been telling her pretty much the entire time since Clinton moved into his stepsister's trailer that he was leaving his wife. And he was going to move in, just him and Clinton. And Clinton had also confirmed this to her. Jeff says that this was never said, that this didn't happen. But, I mean, Carolyn has no reason to lie. Why would she lie? And if you watch the Disappeared episode, she just seems super sweet. And if you watch video clips of her trying to find him, I just want to give her a great big hug. I mean, I really feel for this woman. Carolyn said Jeff told her, I already lost my son once. I'm not going to lose him again. But, you know, we'll get back to that a little bit later. Let's talk about Clinton's job on the oil rig. As I stated earlier, his uncle was a foreman on this particular rig and offered to help get him the initial interview and whatever else it took to get Clinton's foot into the door to work full-time on this rig. It took about 3 months to go through, though, and In that time, Clinton, being a grown man, had to support himself financially, so he took little odd jobs, such as working at a Subway shop, and he also helped out and worked, I guess, part-time. It just said helped out at, but I'm assuming he got paid for it, a welding shop in Princeton, Louisiana. And that's going to come back a little bit later in the story when we start talking about the disappearance, so keep that in mind. It was owned by Larry Gillespie, the welding shop. When Clinton finally did get the job in the oil rig, he called his mom. He told everybody he was so proud of himself. He was super happy about it. He said the pay was incredibly good. And out of the 6 people that had started with him for this program to get into the oil rig, he was the only one that was left standing. He was the only one that got the position. He also told her he had chosen this as his career path, especially, like I said, the pay was really great. Everyone he worked with loved him. They were super impressed with his work ethic, how hard he worked. He even came in on his days off. Carolyn said it did cross her mind that with all of this money he was making, that it might be a temptation for a relapse into drugs. I mean, she's a mom. She's going to worry about those things. This is her baby boy. She said, but she voiced these concerns to Clinton and Jeff, and they both assured her that nothing like that was going on, that Clinton was on the right path. There were no signs of relapse, and there were no issues with drugs. So all in all, she was super excited and happy for her son. Now, let's get into the disappearance of Clinton Devin Nelson. On the night of September 1st, 2006, Clinton went to a party at the owner of the welding shop's house in Princeton, Louisiana, at the 800 block of Ward Lane, Larry Gillespie's house. There are conflicting reports to Clinton's final hours. A few sources say he showed no signs of drug use before his disappearance, but even the disappeared episode said that he was displaying some paranoia. His father said he was looking out of the blinds of Larry's house when he was dropped off. And I also found in a few sources, and this is allegedly, I have not been able to confirm it, that the night before this party, Clinton and his father, Jeff, smoked methamphetamine together. So when Jeff dropped Clinton off at Larry's house the next day, for the party, Jeff had to go to work. Clinton was still all geeked out from the methamphetamine, and that's why he was acting so strangely and looking out the window and all paranoid. He kept saying someone was following and or watching him. According to multiple sources, people that were at the party, Clinton stepped outside around 8:30 p.m. on September 1st, 2006 to have a cigarette and was never seen or heard from again. However, it is confirmed that between 10 and 10:30 at night, on that same night, Clinton made a phone call to his father where he was out of breath and whispering the police were chasing him as he was running through the woods. Then the phone died. Jeff tried to call Clinton back, but it went straight to voicemail. That was the last correspondence, the last anyone heard from Clinton, was that very quick, very short, very bizarre phone call to Jeff the night of his disappearance. The party that night, about 40 to 60 people did attend, according to the sources that I saw. And most, if not all of them, were drug addicts and drug dealers, allegedly. And allegedly, supposedly, the house was a known drug spot. Larry was a known drug dealer. Now, guys, allegedly, just know what that means. I'm not accusing anyone of anything. I'm simply stating what I've read, okay? And what I saw on the disappeared episode, which, by the way, is called Into the Bayou. Before we get into a couple of theories, I just want to discuss that a week or two prior to his disappearance, Clinton had gotten into an accident on the job on the rig. Some kind of tool or equipment or one of those gigantor wrenches fell and hit him on the hard hat. Thank goodness he was wearing it. And he had a broken collarbone, 2 or 3 broken ribs, and his arm was in a sling. So keep that in mind when it comes to some of these theories, at least one of these theories that we are about to discuss. I also want to say there's confusing and conflicting information as to whether or not Clinton was using drugs again, as I previously stated, but also because in every news article I see, it states that Clinton had been clean for 2 years leading up to his disappearance. But that is definitely not true, and that's based on fact. He was clean for 2 years leading up to going to Louisiana. That's definitely for sure, as far as everyone knows, right? Sometimes you can hide addiction, but nobody thinks that that's what was going on. But he was not clean for 2 years up until his disappearance, because a few weeks before his disappearance, he was arrested for having Xanax, MDMA, marijuana, and drug paraphernalia. Nobody bothered to even inform his mother of this until after his disappearance. They had her fully convinced that nothing was wrong, nothing had happened. And in the disappeared episode, his father said, quote, "Well, I wasn't going to be the one to drop the dime on him," end quote. Rightfully so, in my opinion. Carolyn was pissed. She was really angry. If she had known, maybe she could have talked to her son. Maybe she could have convinced him to come home. Maybe not. But as a mother, she wanted to do something. And nobody even told her about it. They just kept telling her, oh yeah, he's fine, he's fine. I would be punching throats at that point. Now let's get into a couple of theories. The first one is Clinton, somehow, with broken ribs, a broken collarbone, and his arm in a sling, went outside to smoke a cigarette and took off running into the woods in a drug-induced paranoia, thinking the cops were following him. Over 100 people from the party were interviewed, and there were many conflicting statements. Some people said Clinton walked off. Some people said Clinton got into a car and was driven away. And some people said he just took off running into the woods. And yet others said he just walked outside to have a cigarette and nobody knows what happened after that. But we do know that he ended up at least in some kind of wood, because he called his father saying the police were chasing him, which, by the way, the police said there were no police in the area that night. Anywhere that was viewable from the Gillespie home where the party was taking place, there was no police. There was no cars pulled over. There was no police presence at all that night anywhere where Clinton would have been. So was it drug-induced paranoia? Probably. Do I believe, especially with those injuries, he just took off running into the woods and was never seen or heard from again? Absolutely not. That's not even reasonable, right? I mean, in my opinion. By the way, if you disagree, respectfully comment down below. Also, if I get anything wrong, respectfully correct me down below. Theory number 2 is that Clinton was killed and robbed for his money he had on him that night. A lot of people that were at the party said that he was not really bragging, but he kept mentioning over and over and very loudly to anyone who would listen that he had $2,500 on him, which was his paycheck that he had just cashed, I don't know, that day or the day before. And he had another paycheck for, I think, $600 and something, a lot of money waiting for him that he had to cash when he got home. So his mother said that, you know, he was from South Dakota. He trusted everybody. She did not raise him to be weary and distrusting of people. So he wouldn't have questioned anyone's motives. He wouldn't have even thought to do that. So he would have told whoever was curious, or maybe he told one person and someone wanted to rob him. In my opinion, this theory is quite plausible. Maybe his body just hasn't been found yet. Somebody beat him up, either beat him to death or beat him up and left him for dead, and then he died and robbed his money. Quite plausible, very reasonable. Considering it was a house party full of addicts and dealers, no offense to us because I was an addict, I was a dealer. Talking so much about the amount of cash, maybe somebody was fiending, or, you know, a lot of us aren't the most upright and clean people when it comes to things like that. Some of us are, but, you know, you guys know what I mean. Come on. I don't know how to say it without being offensive. Theory number 3 is that Clinton overdosed accidentally that night, and some or all of the people at the party hid his body, and he just hasn't been found yet, or he was eaten by alligators or whatever animals and wildlife are down there in those swamps and bayous. This is very reasonable to me because at that time, and I don't know if the law has changed, and we've even talked about this in several of my videos, if anybody had called saying that there was an overdosed dead body at that residence, there would have been arrests made and possible murder charges and what's it called, accessory charges, who knows the charges, not to mention drug charges, right? And if it was that kind of house, let's be honest, nobody wants the law involved for anything when you're living that kind of lifestyle. Could he have overdosed accidentally, and could his body have been hidden? Yes, absolutely. And those woods and bayous down there, they're alligators, right? My Louisiana people in Bossier Parish, alligators. So that's pretty much it on the disappearance of Clinton Devin Nelson. It's such a convoluted case. I really don't know what to think. I think 2 of the 3 theories I discussed are absolutely plausible. There's a lot more information, especially about the owner of the house, Larry Gillespie, which I really don't want to get into because at the end of the day, he hasn't been charged with anything, and you're supposed to be innocent until proven guilty. I believe, and don't quote me, that they've conducted several searches on his property. They've questioned him numerous times. Look, a simple Google search on this case, or even Larry Gillespie, Bossier Parish, you know, Princeton, Louisiana, whatever, you should be able to get some more information to investigate for yourself. I just don't want to trash this guy's name through the mud. In stating my own opinion, I think 1 bajillion million trillion %, he knows what happened if he's not directly involved. I'm very surprised that after 14 years, nobody's loyalties have changed. Nobody's priorities have changed. Nobody's moved out of the area. Nobody's not scared to come forward anymore. Nobody's talking, guys. This poor kid's mother, you know what I'm saying? And he was so young too. He had just turned 21. And I know that doesn't seem young if you are 21. But when you're 37, 21 is almost like a baby. My son is 21. Well, he'll be 21 in October. So, you know, I feel really bad. I'm going to leave you with a quote from his mother. And it says, when asked what she thinks happened to her son, she said this, quote, "I had believed from the very beginning he was dead. I just got this crazy sick feeling the night it happened, and I had no idea he was even missing until 2 days later. I tried to deny that feeling, but that night I felt it." End quote. She also begs and pleads and goes back each year and hangs pictures of him. She begs and pleads, please just let me bring my boy home. There's a reward for, I believe it's $15,000 just for the location of his remains. The police investigate every tip. They said over 1,000 man hours into searching and interviewing people. I don't know, guys. It's another really sad case, another convoluted case, another case in my Unaccountable series. What do you guys think? Which theory do you agree with? Which theory do you think is most plausible? Did you come up with anything else? What are your opinions on anything having to do with this case? Let's get some conversation going. I want you all to please keep in mind that right now I do all of my filming, editing, and most of my research, and also like my thumbnails and all that, on my iPhone because of the problem that I had with my webcam being compatible with my laptop. I was waiting for Best Buy to open so I can return it. So keep that in mind if my editing job is a little choppy. Also, this is only my second true crime video, but if you like what you see, please like and subscribe. Guys, be kind to each other. It doesn't cost anything. If you have any information on Clinton Nelson's disappearance, please contact the Bossier Parish Police Department, and I'll try to put the number on the screen if I can find it. I love you guys. Have your best day. Mwah.